Hi, welcome to Unapologetic Belief, Unapologetically Me, and I am your coach, Coach Tamisa Johnson. These weeks are catching up to us for the month of June. So we will be doing 2 sessions this week, and this first video is about Canaan and Canaan alone. If you can get your cards, you know I'm going to always start off and I'm going to read my cards. And remember, this month's session is about either you're going to believe God or you're not, period. It's just as simple as that. Today we're going to be talking about Canaan, and Canaan is a representation of a promise. We're going to be reading Numbers chapter 13, verses 1 through 2. And also, I ask that you read Genesis 15, because I talked about an old school promise from back in the day, and that's what I'm going to be talking about today. So our card reads as such. God spoke to Moses, saying, "Send forth men, if you please, and let them spy out the land of Canaan that I give to the children of Israel." This is always going to be, unless I otherwise state, the ESV version. What does Canaan represent in your life is what I want us to write down and journal this week. What has Father promised you? The land of Canaan that flowed with milk and honey actually was a promise given by God back in the day. This promise was given to Abraham, and now God has given them the ability to fulfill an assignment. He allowed them to see the land and all that it contained before they went to possess it. How long have you been waiting on your promise? Write down the things that Father has allowed you to see in regards to that promise. Hang with me, we're going somewhere. And so first I want to talk about what is a promise. A promise, per Webster, is an assurance. Assure someone that one will definitely do, give, or arrange something, undertake, or declare that something will happen. Also, it's a declaration or assurance that one will do a particular thing. We have been scarred as in our young adult life, maybe in our childhood, by failed promises. My brother always brings up that he doesn't like layaway because my dad never picked his layaway up when he was younger. That was a promise. The layaway was an assurance to him that an arrangement had been made and my father was going to make good on that arrangement. My sister brings up about a bicycle she was supposed to get for Christmas. She still brings it up to this day. Apparently there was some arrangement made that the bicycle was going to be given to her, but it never did. Promises can mess us up, especially if they haven't been fulfilled. And so a lot of times we're still waiting on those promises, and we are left with distrust. It's a bad taste in my mouth. You know, people owe you money and they tell you, "I promise you I'm going to pay you back," and they don't ever give you no money. You know, it causes problems. It causes, division. And so, but aren't you glad that we serve a God that is a promise keeper? And one of our stickers has promise keeper on it. He's a promise keeper, way maker, miracle worker, light in the darkness. That is who he is. He's a promise keeper. He cannot fail. And we talked about that last week. And so I wrote down some of my promises. I wrote down not only some of my promises, but I wrote down what I have been allowed to see in regards to my promise. And so let's go, and I'm going to be reading Genesis 15 out of the Tanakh, which is my Hebrew Bible. I just want to point out a few things in Genesis 15. You know, Abram, at this point, he's Abram. His name hasn't been changed. I believe God changes his name in chapter 16, 17. Of Genesis. And so Abram is his name in 15, and he has just saved Lot, and he had this conversation with the king of Sodom. But Abraham had a relationship with Father, and this is I know this to be true because of the different names that he referred to him as. In chapter 15, he says in verse 2, Abraham says, "My Lord God Elohim." And in my study in Elohim, which is spelled like the 4-letter name, but punctuated and pronounced Elohim. This usage combines the names that are referred respectfully to mercy and judgment. He knew him as a God of mastery because he called him Lord. He referred to him as Lord. So the way that he referenced God was because of how he knew God. So he had an experience with God. And so I like that because that stood out to me. But even in his experience with him, it seemed to me that Father took him from one level of experience of him to another, because he knew him in his mastery. He knew him that he was a God of judgment, but now he's getting ready to know him as a God of promise. And I'm saying that because as he's in 15, he has a vision, and the Lord comes to him and tells him, I'm your shield, your reward is very great. Because in the previous chapter, the king of Sodom had offered him some possessions, and Abraham was not going to take them. And he said, I lift up my hand to God, the Most High, maker in heaven of earth, if so much as a thread to a shoe strap, or if I shall take from anything of yours, so you shall not say, it is I who made Abram rich. Far from me. He wanted the king of Sodom not to get any glory in any thing that he had been received, because Abram knew the God he served. And so now in 15, God is getting ready to honor him and make a covenant with him. And so he tells, then Abram tells him, after he explains to him that your reward is going to be very great, he says, see, to me, you have given me no offspring. So Abraham tells him, look, I don't got no kids. And see, my steward inherits me. Like, how I'm going to get anything or receive anything, because I have nothing. But Father goes on to tell him, the one will not inherit you, that one will not inherit you, only he that shall come forth from within you shall inherit you. In verse 5 of 15, he says, and he took him outside and said, gaze now towards the heavens and count the stars, if you are able to count them. He said to him, so shall your offspring be. And he trusted God, and he reckoned it to him as righteousness. In verse 7, he said to him, I am God who brought you out of your Kasdim to give you this land to inherit it. That probably ain't how I supposed to say where Abram came from, but you know what? I don't know. So then in verse 8, he said, my Lord Elohim, whereby shall I know that I am to inherit it? This question came up because now he's understanding, okay, I am going to have someone, an offspring, and not only am I going to have an offspring, but from that offspring, the descendants of my offspring is going to be so great. But now, am I going to is this a covenant based on conditions? Not just my righteousness, but my offspring's righteousness. Are they going to be worthy enough or stay worthy enough to inherit this land? This is what I like. Because sometimes God will give us promises that we don't believe we are worthy enough to get. He'll make a promise in our life that sometimes we get the word and it's unbelievable. Father, I'm not worthy, or how am I going to be able to do that? Or you little old me, I don't think, is it based on conditions? Look here. Father then had to tell him. He said, okay. He said, when he told him, whereby shall I know that I am to inherit it? Wait, look. He said, okay. I know I just told you that. I did. I told you. But I'm going to go ahead and make it concrete, because I'm about to have a covenant between me and you. The only witnesses that's going to be present is some dead ones. He told him, take up me 3 heifers, 3 goats, 3 rams, a turtle dove, and a young dove. And in verse 10, he says, and he took all these to him. He cut them in the center and placed each piece opposite its counterpart. The birds, however, he did not cut up. Back then, and during that covenant time, the partners that were going to be involved in the covenant had to walk between the carcasses, or which would have been the parts, the 3 heifers, the 3 goats, the 3 rams. They had to walk. One had to walk between, and the other had to walk between. And so he set it up as instructed. Instructions mean so much. He set it up as instructed, and then he cut it up. The birds he did not cut up, and he had walked through. But while he was waiting for the other partner to come through, birds of prey descended upon the carcasses, and Abram drove them away. This is very important, because the covenant hadn't yet been established, because God hadn't done his part. And so Abraham had to make sure that nothing was bothered, nothing was destroyed, because the covenant wasn't over. And I'm bringing this up because what happens is he's already made a covenant. He's already made promises with us. But I want to look at it in this aspect that even in those promises that he has made with us, they have not manifested. And what has happened is God has done his part, but we have not. Yeah. We haven't done our part or seen it to fruition because it's taken too long. Remember when you first were given a promise, whether it was through prophecy, prophetic word from someone else, or Father spoke the rhema word to you, and he told you what was going to come. He told you what was going to happen. It might have been 6 months ago. It may be a year ago. But are you as excited as you were when you first received the word? Are you doing the things, following his instructions as you were doing when you first received the word? No, you have stopped. You have allowed the birds of prey to come up and take away those parts of the covenant that Father has made with you, because we have been distracted because of our we're no longer trusting, we're no longer believing, we're even questioning if in fact that he actually gave us that promise. And so here, as we continue on in verse 12, he says, and it happened as the sun was about to set, a deep sleep fell upon Abram, and behold, a great darkness fell upon him. In verse 13, and he said to Abram, know with certainty. Because remember, Abram was questioning in the verses before, is this condition, will they be able to even be worthy enough to inherit it? Father came back to him and said, I ain't gonna just give you a word. I'm about to have a covenant with you. He says, know with certainty that your offspring shall be aliens in the land not their own, and they will serve them, and they will oppress them for 400 years. But also the nation they will serve I shall judge, and afterwards they will leave with great wealth. As for you, you shall come to your ancestors in peace. You shall be buried in a good old age, and the fourth generation shall return here, for the equity of Amorite shall not yet be fulfilled upon them. So it happened, the sun set, and it was very dark. Behold, there was a smoky furnace and a torch of fire that passed between the pieces. That right there was the ratification of the covenant. Father had passed through the other pieces, and the covenant had been established. Verse 18 says, and on that day God made a covenant with Abram, saying, to your descendants I have given this land, from the river of Egypt to the great river, And so at this point, not only did God give him his word, but he also made the covenant. He has made a covenant with us, a promise that he will fulfill it. I know man has failed us. I know man has not kept promises, but we serve a God that is a promise keeper. I need you to remember and to stand fast in that covenant. Don't allow anything to be taken away from what you're believing God to do, or what you know that God has told you that he's going to do in your life. I don't care what it looks like. I don't care about the in-between. Father was so gracious enough to tell Abraham the in-between and the ending. We don't always get the in-between, but he will tell us what the ending is. He will tell us where we're going to be. And so regardless of what our middle part is, regardless of what we have to deal with until we get to the promise of the manifestation of the promise, we got to stand fast in that, knowing that he is a promise keeper, and we have assurance through his word that he's going to fulfill what he has said that he's going to do. And so as we conclude with Numbers chapter 13, God spoke to Moses, saying, send forth men, if you please, and let them spy out the land of Canaan that I give to the children of Israel. That I give. He's getting ready. We're going somewhere with these instructions. I'm telling you, he's getting ready to let them go see the land of promise. It's not quite time for you to go possess it, but I'm gonna let you go see. I'm gonna let you go taste of what I'm about to give you. And that's what I'm excited for, because I think that right now, I believe we're in this era where Father has allowed us to taste and see of the promise, and the manifestation is shortly to come. It's shortly to come. And so that's what I want you to work on this week. What promises? How long have you been waiting? I want you to write all that down. Write down the things that he have allowed you to see, allowed you to taste, and just hang on in there. Just hang on in there, because our manifestation is coming. And so Canaan, this week, Canaan. And I'm going to be coming back in a couple of days with the instruction, because in order to get to the promise, we must follow the instruction. Y'all be blessed.